Hi, Julian.
Hi, nice to see you.
You too. Thanks for your time today. I know that you've got quite a busy schedule at the moment. A new production that you're directing at the moment called Grimm Tales. Tell me more.
As the title suggests, it's the Brothers Grimm and the fairy stories that they collected over quite a long period of time from around the world. And as with all stories, in the telling and the retelling, they got slightly sort of changed and sanitised and whatnot. So about 10 or so years ago, Carol Ann Duffy, who was the poet laureate, took the source material and rewrote them in modern day language. And then the Young Vic Theatre Company under a guy called Tim Supple then dramatised some of them, which have now been published. So this is the South Hill Park Family Summer Show, and we're doing 7 of the Grimm Tales. Certainly 5 like really well known, and then 2 not so well known ones. The Golden Goose, which everybody thinks they know, but it's not the one with the golden egg, it's the other Golden Goose. And one called The Riddling Tale, which only lasts about 3 minutes. But it's a riddle, and the audience get a chance to answer the riddle, so there's a bit of interaction.
Oh, that's good. I mean, it's interesting you saying about the Grimm brothers, because obviously they rewrote some of the well-known stories that we know, but they actually tamed them down a little bit because they were quite dark, weren't they?
Oh, horrendous, yeah. And we've tried really, really hard to be true to those stories, so that one person's happily ever after often comes at somebody else's expense, deservedly so usually, but also bearing in mind that this is a family show and we don't want to send people home with nightmares or whatever, so we've tried to do it in a way whereby the audience will be very aware that, you know, this is a story and it's not necessarily happening for real, but nonetheless it's part of the story, and part of the reason for storytelling, which has gone on since caveman sat around campfires, is about teaching people morals and the difference between right and wrong, and stranger danger. Just because somebody's nice doesn't mean to say that they're necessarily good.
Absolutely. And how many have you got in the cast then? So how many of your characters have you got?
Okay, so 14 working as an ensemble, playing lots and lots of different characters in the stories, and one of the actors might be a door in one of the stories, or they might just move a tree, but then in the next story they're one of the main principal characters. So it's all about supporting each other and working as a team to tell a story, because that's what it's about, telling stories.
So quite a busy show for your cast.
Yeah.
So obviously you've had quite a run of auditions to assemble this cast. How was the audition process?
Very good, actually. And on the very first day of rehearsals, I walked into the room and said, okay, so you've made it into the ensemble and you're in the show, but now we're going to start auditioning all over again to decide who plays which part in which particular story and things. So that was quite an interesting process to go through. And we're also really aided in this process in the fact that we've got an amazing set designed by Victoria Spearing. We're doing it in the round, which again really helps the audience to feel that they're part of the story. And the world that the cast inhabit is based on books, so all the props, all the trees, the huntsman's axe, everything is book related. So it's either got book print on it, or it looks like a book, or it's a bed that's made up out of piles of books. So that the idea is, as far as we possibly can, that they always say, don't they, that the art of acting is saying something as though it's the first time you've ever said it. So the feeling is that the audience are joining with the ensemble to sit round and hear some bedtime stories. That's what so it's cosy and it's friendly and it's I just get this little picture in my head of parents sort of sitting in the auditorium with their arms round their children, sort of snuggling up, and if there is something that happens that's a bit scary, they just cuddle each other a little bit tighter, you know, and it's
and that's actually what fairy stories and sort of nighttime reading with parent and child was all about, and hopefully still is. So that's lovely. That makes it special, doesn't it? And by the sounds of it, every cast member has got an opportunity to have and play a part. So that's brilliant. That's really, really good. So set and costumes, all in place. What about the music?
Okay, so this isn't a musical, but we do have incidental music performed and composed wonderfully by my dear friend and colleague Tim Cumper, who I've worked with quite a lot, and we worked with Tim on Spamalot. And that's been a gorgeous part of the process, because Tim just came to rehearsals with blank sheets of music paper, and he sort of composed to go along in sympathy with the story. We got one of the cast members who is a very accomplished flautist, so there's lots of birds in these stories, so a flute comes in really, really handy. It's really been a very sort of collaborative piece, with the cast deciding how these characters are going to look and how they're going to behave and what their relationship is with everybody else. And so I've been really fortunate to have a wonderful assistant director called Fran Hems, and our job has just been sort of saying to people, well, how do you see it? How do you want this character to look? And just giving them some feedback about, well, when you did that bit, that worked, but perhaps shall we look at doing this bit differently because that didn't come across, or whatever. And I think the other, you mentioned about the hard work involved. From the moment the doors of the theatre open until the moment the audience go out, the cast never leave the playing area. There's no nipping off to the dressing rooms for changes. It all happens in front of the audience, and so everything that they need is there from the very beginning, and there might be an object that the audience are sitting there thinking, wonder why that's there, and then by the time we get to story 6 they'll go, oh, okay, I see what that's for now.
It's quite interesting. We were talking about that earlier, weren't we, about how a lot of the time the audience doesn't really see that, but all the prep that goes in terms of making sure the costumes are all in place before the props, etc. And it does actually reflect how talented your cast is, isn't it? Because they have got so much to think about, and it's not just what they're doing on stage at that particular moment, it's everything before and after, isn't it? Yeah,
and with a production like this, we don't actually get the stage until 2 or 3 days before the opening performance. So in the rehearsal room, it's been really about being absolutely confident in the text and the characterisation, because when we get into the theatre on Monday, because we don't open until next Friday, suddenly there's going to be all these new elements chucked at them that they're going to have to cope with. But as I say, they really are a very talented cast, and it'll be fine.
And what I really like, and I heard you saying recently, was how you might not typically stereotype have a male person playing a male part. You have interchangeable sort of characters played by, maybe a younger person than first depicted. So that's different as well, isn't it?
Yeah. As I say, the idea is that they're spontaneously telling these stories, and just like children in the playground at school, it's like, oh, it's my turn to be the king this time. It's that. I mean, what would have been really wonderful would be to get to the stage where different actors played different characters at different performances, but we would have needed a huge amount of rehearsal.
You've got enough on your hands already, haven't you? That's a different league, isn't it? Well, I think it's great, and I think, we were saying how fairy tales, stories, all that kind of thing it's the art of conversation, the art of storytelling, but the art of conversation, which gets slightly lost these days, doesn't it?
Yeah, and you know, I also operate in the corporate learning and development world, and one of the buzzwords now is storytelling, because people have realised that actually you can have the most boring set of figures to present on, but if you can weave a story around it and bring those figures to life, then it lands and people remember it. We remember stories, and it's something that whatever you watch on the television, when you play a video game, when you go to the cinema, everything that you see starts with somebody in their head thinking, oh, there's a story here. Every time you meet a friend in the street and they say, do you have a nice weekend? What they're effectively saying to you is, tell me a story. It's the basis of all conversation. And you said earlier on that there is a worry that we've lost, just in the same way that families don't necessarily eat together. There is that feeling that not everybody sits down at the end of the day as a family to relate the happenings of the day and to just share those moments.
Absolutely right. And I think, you know, whether it be friendships as well, conversations get lost with social media and the communication and technology. So it's great because this production, it brings it all back to what it's all about, isn't it? And communicating and interaction, and it's a great way to bring the audience and of all generations together and relate, isn't it?
Yeah. But overarching all of that, it's fun. It's a celebration of spending time together and enjoying live theatre, where every performance is always going to be slightly different. And you know, it's the summer holidays, it's August, it's absolutely chucking down outside at the moment. What better way to get in? And you know, people think of theatre as being quite an expensive thing, but actually, you know, the pricing here, family tickets, over 14 quid, I think. It's not bad for an afternoon out, is it? Absolutely
not. I mean, yeah, you could spend more at the cinema or a day out elsewhere, couldn't you? And not come away with as much thought-provoking experience.
We don't get you to spend 20 quid on huge tubs of popcorn or gallon containers of fizzy drinks. You know, it's the... Don't start me on that.
I know, okay. Fair enough. Moving on. So, Grimm Tales, South Hill Park, really looking forward to coming and seeing it, Julian, because I think just chatting to you about it, I'm excited to see you know, the whole format and everything. Final question: what was your favourite childhood fairy tale or story? Is there anything that sticks in your mind for whatever reason?
Funnily enough, the very first story of the 7 that we tell, Hansel and Gretel, I don't know why it stuck in my memory, but I just remember it from early childhood. And you know, it's got everything. It's got danger, it's got excitement, it's the gingerbread house, sweets involved and what have you, but also of all the stories, it really heightens that whole thing about be careful who you trust, because like I said earlier, just because somebody's nice doesn't necessarily mean that you can trust them, and you know, that's something that feels in 2019 as true as it's ever been.
Yeah, I agree totally. Well, all the very best.
Thank you.
It's been a real pleasure to chat to you about this and also reflect on previous productions that we've worked on together. Brought some little funny memories back, hasn't it?
Yeah.
But I wish you all the best. I can't wait to see it, and obviously I'll let you know, you know, my experience when I've been and seen all of these different characters. So
I look forward to receiving your feedback.
Thanks, Julian, and good luck. Break a leg.
Bye.